I know this might sound strange. Some of you might not even believe it. But the more I keep it inside, the worse I feel. I have to speak up. Maybe it'll serve as a warning to someone. What's the worst an unconscious animal can do, right? We tend to think they just act on instinct. But after what I experienced, that belief of mine changed completely. Back then, my daughter was 6 years old. She always begged me for a pet. To be honest, I was never a fan of animals. Dogs, cats, none of them felt right for me. But for my daughter, that was different. It was hard for me to say no to her. So, I got a puppy. He was only 3 months old. Small, black, and a little timid. But my daughter loved him immediately. She named him Shadow. And Shadow grew attached to her too. He would sleep beside her bed at night and wake up with her every morning. 3 years passed. Shadow had grown. He was more like a member of the family now. By the time my daughter turned 9, their bond had grown even stronger. You couldn't separate them. One night, I suddenly woke up. Shadow was barking. Loud, angry barks that pierced the quiet of the night. It unsettled me. I went to check on him. He was staring at the window, barking furiously. But there was nothing outside. I looked into the yard. Still and empty. Maybe a bird. Or something moving in the wind. I didn't think much of it at the time. The next night, the same thing happened. But this time, it was different. His bark wasn't angry. It was scared. His voice trembled. He stared at the window again. And again, there was nothing there. I shut the window and thought, he probably saw another bird. But the third night, that was something else. His barking changed. It was thinner, longer, and came from deep within, almost like a cry. I went to him, but his eyes were different. It was like he was asking for help. My daughter woke up too. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Dad, Shadow is scared," she said. I tried to calm her. "There's nothing there." "Maybe he had a bad dream," I said. But even I didn't know what was going on. And this kept happening. Every night. At the same time. Shadow would bark at the window, sounding angry and terrified. I checked the doors, the yard, the window. Every time. But there was never anything. Everything looked normal. The only thing that wasn't normal was Shadow. And that strangeness was just the beginning. Let me know if you'd like the next parts of the story translated the same way. I can keep the tone and details consistent throughout. The next time, I saw my daughter crying over Shadow. That night, the dog was acting even more strangely than before. There was no barking like usual. This time, it was as if he was crying. He whimpered with deep, throaty sounds. My daughter was holding him tightly, and tears were falling from both their eyes. In that moment, I didn't know which one I felt more sorry for. Shadow kept running around the room. One moment he would crawl under a chair, then dart behind the bed. He repeated this over and over. It was as if he was trying to hide from something. But the room was empty. At least, as far as I could see. I searched the yard again. Everything was silent. Even the neighbors' dogs weren't barking. It felt like this fear belonged only to our home. I kept looking, hoping to spot a cat or maybe a fox. But I found nothing. And every time I came back inside, I'd find Shadow the same. Or worse. He stopped eating. His stomach looked sunken. His eyes were full of sorrow. Strange as it sounds, that dog was grieving. Then the real event happened. One morning. When I woke up, I saw the door was open. At first, I thought maybe my daughter had forgotten to close it on her way to school. But at the doorstep, there were fresh, red bloodstains. They started from inside the house and trailed out into the yard. I froze. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed blood splattered on the walls. It wasn't just footprints. It looked like something had slammed a clawed hand against the surface. It was violent, something far worse than just stains. My daughter was still in her room. Without waking her, I stepped outside. The dog was gone. I called his name, looked everywhere. The trail of blood led toward the forest behind our house. Even though it was daytime, stepping into that forest alone gave me an uneasy feeling. But I had no choice. My feet followed the trail. Sometimes the blood would disappear, then reappear again, as if someone had tried to wipe it away. I kept going. And then suddenly, my chest tightened. There was something at the base of a tree. I got closer. It was Shadow's skull. Next to it, his two front legs. But the rest of the body was gone. I dropped to my knees. My head spun. Something broke inside my heart. I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone was gripping my throat, squeezing tighter. Only one thought came to me. Shadow was afraid. Whatever he was afraid of each night had finally found him. It had torn him apart. He had been its prey. And the worst part, maybe that thing was still out there. I returned home without looking back. I couldn't meet my daughter's eyes. She knew nothing. But I knew far too much now. And the most terrifying feeling of all was knowing this wasn't over yet. Let me know if you'd like to keep going with the story or make it part of a full collection. This has great horror potential. How could I explain it to my daughter? I couldn't tell her that I had found Shadow's skull. If she saw it, it would completely break her. She still wanted to believe he was out there, waiting to be found. Even though I knew, deep down, that it was all over. The only thing I could say to her was, I couldn't find him. After all, she was just a child. No child should have to face such a brutal truth. Every time I looked at her, it hurt inside. Whenever she asked, I'd say I was still going into the forest, still searching. But every night, all I could think about was that one thing. Whatever it was that Shadow barked at each night, it had found him. That creature, or whatever it was, had been there all along. Just hidden where we couldn't see it. Maybe it had always been right in front of us. But we simply didn't see it. Every weekend, I would go to the village market. It had become a bit of a routine for me. You could find almost anything there. Fresh vegetables, household items, old books. Sometimes, even pets were sold. That day, I went with the same intention. Everything was normal. Until I saw that cat. It was a black cat with shiny fur and strange eyes. It felt like it was staring at me, as if it were the only thing in the whole market. The seller approached and smiled. He said the cat was a bit unusual. Apparently, its previous owners hadn't kept it for long and had returned it. Then, jokingly, he added that maybe the cat chooses its owner. I just laughed it off. But it was strange. Despite his words, there was a voice inside me telling me to buy it. I didn't fully understand why, but I bought the cat. I didn't get anything else. Just the cat and a small carrier for it. I headed home. On the way, it sat quietly in the carrier. It didn't meow or cause any disturbance. It was as if it already knew me. At home, it wandered around in the same calm manner. It curled up in a corner of my bedroom. I went out to meet up with my friends, as we had planned earlier. Though I felt a bit strange about the cat, I thought, maybe it's just taking some time to adjust. At that moment, I had no idea that this seemingly ordinary cat would mark the beginning of the strangest and most terrifying days of my life. When I got home that evening, everything seemed normal at first glance. But then, I froze for a moment when I saw the cat in front of the house. I clearly remembered leaving it inside. I was sure I had closed the door. I figured maybe it had somehow gotten out. I opened the door and went in. But then, something even stranger happened. The cat was already on top of the refrigerator. I hadn't even taken my shoes off yet when our eyes met. There was a strange glint in its eyes. Then I remembered. Earlier, it was also in the yard. Could there be two cats? I thought that was impossible, no matter how similar they looked. I rushed back outside. Nothing. The yard was empty. I felt a bit uneasy, but I told myself it was probably just my imagination. I was tired, and I had a slight headache. The cat still seemed calm. I laid down in bed. Not long after closing my eyes, I fell asleep. But sometime in the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up. I could feel something was in the room. When I lifted my head, I saw the cat. It was sitting on the floor, staring right at me, not moving. Those eyes. A chill ran down my spine. It didn't feel like a cat. It felt like something else. I got up and went to the kitchen. I just wanted a drink of water, something I do all the time. When I came back, the cat was gone. I searched the whole house. The doors were closed, the windows tightly shut. Finally, I opened the basement door. I almost never go down there. But I had a feeling. The cat was there. As I descended the steps, I could barely breathe. It was standing in the darkest corner of the basement, like it had been waiting for me. The strangest part was that it made no sound. It just stared. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the carrier and put the cat inside. It didn't resist. It was calm, but I could tell. It didn't want to leave. Still, it didn't fight it. I started the car and drove down a rural road. It was in the trunk. There's no way it could remember the way back. I drove for about 40 minutes. I stopped in a quiet, isolated place with no one around. I opened the carrier. The cat slowly stepped out and sat in the middle of the road. It started watching me. That stare. Something cracked inside me. I got in the car and drove off as fast as I could. Halfway down the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw it was still sitting there. It hadn't moved. Its gaze still followed me. I'm free, I told myself. I tried to calm down, but when I got home, I experienced the biggest shock of my life. When I opened the door, the cat was there, sitting in the living room, waiting for me. That same look. It hadn't run. It wasn't tired. It hadn't even left. Or maybe it had, but somehow returned before me. The seller's words now sounded completely different. He hadn't been joking, and I was just realizing it far too late. Since that night, the cat vanished. I searched everywhere, inside, outside. Nothing. Only the front door was wide open. I tried finding the seller again, but he was gone. No one at the market even remembered him. It was like neither he nor the cat ever existed. But I know they did. And sometimes, when I see a black cat on the street, I still feel that same stare. I don't know if I lost it, or if it never left.